What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So this is something I really, really don't want to do, but we're going to do it. We're going to look back on the entire season, 15-16 season of Chelsea, and just take a look back and kind of see where things went wrong, and also compare a few things that I think people are ignoring. First of all, first half of the season. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. With Mourinho, with Eva, I'm just gonna call her Eva. The doctor, she's been there for a while. Mourinho has a falling out with her, removes her, then she quits. I think that's kind of where things went downhill, and it was the very first game of the season. So yeah, it was. I don't want to completely blame Mourinho because at the same time, you're professional players. Even if you don't like your coach, you get on with the game. You still play because you're being paid to and because you love the sport. So Mourinho's not 100% to blame, but he did have a major part in it. And I think he is to blame for why the players lost respect for him. So obviously that's very frustrating. That's unfortunate, especially after such a great season last season. But a lot of stuff did happen the first half of the season that it took a lot longer than I think it should have for him to go. There was a lot of stuff going on, not only on the field, not only with the results, but you also look at he's being suspended because he tried to get into the referee's locker room at halftime because he's upset about a call. Stuff like that is stuff you shouldn't do as a manager. It's stuff that you should avoid, especially not only out of respect for yourself, but out of respect for the club. You're representing the club. You don't do stupid stuff like that because it reflects poorly on the club. We already have kind of a bad reputation because of some of the stuff that goes on that people really focus in on. That type of stuff just makes it even worse. So I do think he should have been gone a lot sooner. However, when he did leave, next result is a win, a good solid win against Sunderland, and then Hiddink comes in. And I think I don't know if people are giving him credit or not, because I really haven't looked at sort of the overall fan reaction to him. But in my opinion, he didn't do much. It was more the players deciding, okay, we're not playing for Mourinho anymore, and they've stepped it up, more than Hiddink doing anything. And in fact, I did, just for kind of a comparison stat, I took stats for both of them. Just really quick, I guess stats that matter. I don't know how else to describe it. Mourinho, his record was 4-3-9. 4 wins, 3 draws, 9 losses, which is huge when you really think about just how bad that is. Mourinho with 9 losses. I don't know if he's ever gotten 9 losses in a season before. Like last season we only had 3. This season we had 9 under him alone. That kind of tells you something about where he went with the team. His goal difference was a -8, which is also awful. But you look at his wins, and that's where I think these wins happened, and it kept him a bit longer than it should have. Because the first win was against West Brom. It was a 3-2 win, which wasn't great, and even then, Terry ends up with a red card, so not a great result. And people, it was after a tie and a loss, and then we won that one. It's like, oh, okay, so things got worse. And then we beat Arsenal 2-0, and people were like, oh yeah, we're so much. There was a lot of controversy with that game. The players actually played with heart because it was playing against Arsenal. I think that had a lot more to do with it than anything Mourinho did. And then his other 2 wins were Norwich and Villa. Bottom of the table. Like the bottom 2 clubs. The only other 2 teams he could beat. If you look at his losses, there's some major, major losses here. First of all, Bournemouth at home. That should tell you something. Not just the fact that he lost it. He lost to Bournemouth at home. Bournemouth, the first time they're in the Premier League, and they beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. That is... The funny thing is, he actually got sacked the next weekend after getting beat by Leicester at the King Power Stadium. I was like, no, that's not the result that does it. The result that should do it is losing to Bournemouth at your own place, and then you lose to the eventual Premier League champions at their place. And for some reason, that's what got him sacked. But anyway, Bournemouth at home lost to Southampton at home, who were struggling at the time. Obviously, they ended up fairly well, but at the time they weren't doing too well. They just lost 2 in a row, and then they beat us at home. We lost to Palace at home. Look at what happened to them. We lost to Liverpool at home. Second game that Klopp was in charge, so he's not done anything. And then we lost to Stoke twice. Once at their place in the Capital One Cup on penalties, and then we did it again, a few weeks later. And Stoke's not anything special. Like when I think about teams that, I'm worried about going to their place, I think about Southampton. I think about Liverpool. I think about, some of these other mid-table sides. Stoke barely is a mid-table side, and they don't even really deserve to be there. They were pitiful the second half of the season. And the fact that we lost to them twice under Mourinho is very frustrating. Now, you compare that to Hiddink. Hiddink's record was better. 7, 11, and 13. So, not 13, 3. So 7 wins, 11 draws, and 3 losses. That 11 draws is where I want to focus. Because if you look at, first of all, goal difference in comparison, 14. So we ended up with a 6 goal difference, I believe. No, wait. His goal difference was 11 because our 6 goal difference, we didn't have a manager when we beat Sunderland 3-0. So his goal difference was actually 11. You look at his wins, though, and this is where I want to draw focus because they're all wins that should happen. Our first win was against Crystal Palace, and at the time looked like a great win. It was actually a very solid performance, but look at Palace now. Yeah, they really dropped off, and this was sort of the beginning of it. That our win against them at their place, 3-0. That's kind of where it started for them. That's where their drop happened. Second one was against Arsenal. Like I said, we always turn up for the Arsenal game. That's the one game we almost always win. And whenever we don't win, it's like something crazy happened. Next was Newcastle, and it was a very good performance, but at the time, Newcastle were really struggling. Then we beat Southampton. At the time, Southampton was struggling. Then we beat Norwich. Then we beat Villa. Then we beat Bournemouth. All 3, we should be beating those teams. They're not anything that, Norwich and Villa, like I said, bottom of the table. And Bournemouth, they just fell off second half part of the season. They did well at the beginning, but they fell apart. But then you look at our ties. Like I said, 7 wins. Those were our 7 wins. So most of them, except for like maybe Southampton away, we should be winning those. Those are all winnable games. You look at our ties. We tied Watford twice. And the second game was at home, and we tied 0-0. We tied Man U twice. And Man U was really struggling. This was before Rashford was introduced. This was when Martial was just starting to do a little bit, but the rest of their team was still crap. And we tied them both times, even at home. It was a 1-1 tie. We tied West Brom at our place. Even Mourinho beat West Brom at their place. We tied Everton at home, and look at what happened to Everton. We tied West Ham at home. Look at what happened to West Ham. We tied Stoke at home. Look at where Stoke... If we had beaten Stoke, we would be in 9th place right now. So, my frustration with Hiddink is less that he made mistakes, more that he didn't really go for a win. And a lot of that had to do with Mikel playing. He adds a bit of frustration and a lack of defensive effort in the midfield, and we start leaking some goals. But overall, there were just a couple games where it felt like, okay, make another sub, bring on fresh legs, and change the game, and he never did. There were like 3 games in a row where he only brought on 2 subs, and we ended up tying 2 of those games. Why? Bring on that 3rd sub, try to change the game. He really should have gone for more wins. And just those few teams. You can argue Man U, okay, they're still a big club even if they are playing crap. Even that, those are just 2 ties out of 11. So that's still 9 ties. that's just not good enough. That's 2 drop points for all of those games. That's 22 drop points. You look at the 3 games that we lost. Man City, okay, that we really should have done better that game. It was a really poor game, but you know what? Whatever. I won't count that one. We lost to Swansea, and we lost to Sunderland. Those are 2 winnable, very, very easily winnable games. Sunderland, Mikel and Ivanovic screwed us over. Against Swansea, nobody tried, except for 2 players that you subbed in the second half. So 2 games where we just dropped 3 points. So that's 28 points that we've dropped. And not counting the Man City game, not counting the Man U game at home at their place, because whatever. And you know what? Actually, Man U at their place, Liverpool at their place, Leicester at home, and we won't count the first Watford game because it was his first game in charge. So that's 4 ties I'm counting off. I'm counting off the Man City loss. So that's 7 ties, 14 points dropped there, 6 drop points from losses, 20 points. 20 more points, we would have 70 points. We would be in 3rd place. We'd be in 4th place on goal difference because Tottenham has a better goal difference. There you go. We could be in 4th place. Even if you just look at, we have 50 points. 7th place had 62. 6th place had 63. We're 13 points away. That's just a few wins that we had to put together. There was a few wins where we don't give away the lead. There was a few wins where you just get that second goal instead of holding on to a 1-goal lead and giving away an equalizer late on. So many games where we could easily be in Europe next year under Hiddink, but he did nothing to help us out. We lost the FA Cup because of him. We lost the Champions League because of him. Mourinho had a very, very, very poor start to the season, and Hiddink had a lot to do to come in and change things around. He didn't do it. He really did not do it. By the end of the season, we're still in a crap position in the league. We haven't done anything different. Things are just we're not close to relegation. That's the only thing he can say. Oh, well, we weren't in a relegation battle. Thanks. We could have done that easily. That was no problem. Aston Villa, Newcastle, Norwich, Sunderland, they're all in the relegation battle. We aren't. So thanks for keeping us out of relegation, Hiddink. So pretty much thanks for nothing. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the 2 managers. Overall, obviously very frustrating season. But I will say, I'm gonna do a few like my top defensive player, top midfield, top forward, top overall player. Starting from the back, top defensive player, I'm gonna have to give it to Kurt Zouma. Unfortunately, got injured. That is where things really, really hurt. Because honestly, he is looking like our brightest young defender. Very physical, does a good job defensively. Doesn't really get pulled out a lot. He still has a bit to learn, but he's young. He's like 20 or 21, so hopefully he returns just as physically fit as he was before the injury on his knee. But overall, I will say, looking at the entire season, best defensive player. Best midfield player, that's a tough one. I guess I'll give it to Willian. Even though he did drop off on the second half of the season, I think when you look at the season as a whole, he's the midfield player that had the most impact overall. He's the reason we didn't drop more points first half of the season. He's the reason we were still in the Champions League, even under Mourinho. Kept us in a lot of those games, won us a couple of those games. So I will say he's our best midfield player overall. Best striker, I'm going to have to give it to Costa. I mean, after Mourinho left, really stepped it up. Got himself quite a few goals, really put himself out there. Hopefully, hamstring's not too bad. He can come back strong next year. Still got to work on the attitude just a little bit, but he's still a great striker. He showed what he can do whenever he came back. And then finally, my overall top player for Chelsea this year, it's got to be the one and only captain of Chelsea, John Terry. Um, say what you will about Willian, he did drop off second half of the season. John Terry, even though he had some injuries that had a couple games where he was suspended, when you look at his performances in the games when he did play, he's always working as hard as he can. And that's not anything you can say about any of the Chelsea players this year. At some point, some of them turned off, some of them didn't play well. They've all had bad games at some point. Terry is one that was either good or better. Yes, he makes mistakes. They all make mistakes. But when I look at the game, when I look at how hard he's working, when I look at the times that he's closed down shots and kept them from scoring, he did it all. And the fact that we are still pondering his future at Chelsea is a mystery to me. The fact that he hasn't been re-signed at this point. Obviously they've offered him a contract, but he's saying it's in a different role. Whether that's he's not a captain, whether that's he's a player coach, I don't know. But I want if all the Chelsea players played with the heart that he has, we would have won this season. I mean, you look at Leicester, the only reason they won this season is because they played with heart the entire season. They have a lot of skill. They have a lot of good players. But that's not all of it. You can't just have skilled players. It was based on skill, it would be, Chelsea, Man City, and Arsenal, top three again. And then probably Tottenham and then Liverpool. But Leicester, they showed this year, you don't only need to have skill, you need to have heart to play too. You need to have a desire to go and play. And that's what they did. Terry had that desire. And the fact that he can still have that desire, even at such an old age, just shows he deserves to be our captain one more year. He deserves to be our defender one more year. He's earned it. And the fact that it took so long for them to offer a contract really boggles my mind. But he is, in my opinion, the best player for this year. So, looking forward to next year. Obviously, we've got Conte coming in. Hopefully, we can get a few players in to replace some of the ones that we need to get rid of. I would say, as far as the team for next year, love to have Azpilicueta back. Hopefully he can, maybe calm down, because I think he was a very consistent defender first half of the season. Second half he really dropped off, really started diving in, flying around the field instead of staying calm, and hopefully he can get that side of his game back. Cahill, not good enough, but we've got Zuma. Zuma and Terry, and then possibly Christensen, possibly Clark Salter, possibly Miazga. We've got a lot of good youngsters that we could throw in there. We need a left back desperately. Baba, not good enough yet. Maybe he will get better, but so far from what I've seen, he's not good enough. We've got Ake, but even he's done pretty well at Watford, but you look at how they've dropped off. It may not be him. I wasn't really watching them, but it does say something that they did drop off at some point. So we need to get in a left back, a solid left back who can do the job well. Midfield, Matic and Fabregas are still doing well. Matic does the defensive part. Fabregas, great long balls on the offense. So maybe somebody that can take one of their spots if you need them to. Pogba may be that player. I don't know. I don't even think he's going to come to Chelsea at this point. But maybe one player there because Mikel doesn't cut it. Up top, Hazard, obviously keep him. Willian, I'd say keep him, even though he did drop off. He's still a good player. Oscar needs to go. Pedro, I don't know if he's good enough. And then aside from that, I mean, we've got so many talented attacking midfielders. You think about Kennedy, you think about some of the other. We got Moses out there, we got Cuadrado out there, we got all of these lone players that could come in and play up there. So Oscar needs to go, in my opinion. Though he's not cutting it unless Conte comes in and can bring something to his game that we haven't seen yet. He's not good enough. And then up top, we've got Costa, but still good. Traore, in my opinion, he's not a lone striker. If we wanted to go possibly to a two-striker system, I could see Costa and Traore playing off of each other. So that may be something, with Conte coming in, possibly bringing in a new system as well instead of the 4-2-3-1. That may be something to look at, but we do need to think about possibly bringing in a star attacking midfielder if we can. So I'm looking forward to next year just because it'll be different. It'll be something. It's almost like a bit of mystery, like this season coming in, we thought we knew what to expect, and then it all got pulled out from under us. Next year, we really don't know what to expect, so as long as it's better than this year, I feel like it's going to be enjoyable, at least. Obviously, with no Europe to play for, it is going to be lacking a bit of that. It's going to be something that normally we have something to look forward to in the midweek. We got a Champions League game. Next year, we don't. That's frustrating, but hopefully it'll give us time to focus on the league, getting us back to where we should be in the league. But yeah, next year cannot come soon enough. So, looking forward, I will probably make a few more videos throughout the summer just to keep updated, give my thoughts on, players that we've sold, players that we've bought, any news I hear. I'll maybe making a few videos here and there, so keep an eye out for those whenever big news pops for Chelsea. But yeah, looking forward to next year, waiting for it, hoping it's going to be better than this year. So those are my thoughts on this year overall. Let me know what you thought down below. If there are any thoughts you want to submit and talk about, let me know. We can discuss it. Leave a like and subscribe for next year, and possibly go check out some of my TV show reviews. I do a lot of those. So that's it for this season. It's been a rough ride, but it's over now, so we can all finally let it go. So I'll see you guys in the next season. Peace out.